I'm 78 years old, and this morning I dropped a cup of hot coffee all over myself. Not a little spill. The whole cup. It was in my hands 1 second, and the next second it was falling, and I couldn't stop it. My hands just gave out. The coffee went everywhere. On my shirt, my pants, the floor. It was hot. Not quite burning, but hot enough to make me gasp. And I stood there in my kitchen, dripping, shaking, looking at the broken cup on the floor, and thinking, what if that had been boiling water? What if I'd been at the stove? What if next time I can't let go fast enough? The shaking started maybe a year ago. Just a tremor here and there. My hand would shake a little when I reached for something. I'd notice it, and then it would stop. I told myself it was nothing. Tiredness, low blood sugar, too much coffee, ironically, things that happen when you get older. I didn't worry about it. I certainly didn't tell anyone about it, but it got worse. Slowly, gradually, in that way things do when you're trying not to notice them. The shaking became more frequent, more pronounced. I'd be holding a glass of water and see the surface rippling. I'd be trying to unlock my front door and the key would rattle against the lock. I'd be eating soup and have to concentrate to keep the spoon steady enough to reach my mouth. Small frustrations, small embarrassments, nothing I couldn't manage. Or so I told myself. I live alone. I've lived alone for 10 years, since my husband died. And living alone after 70 means you can hide things. There's no one there to see your hand shake. No one to watch you struggle with a zipper or a button because your fingers won't cooperate. No one to notice that you've stopped drinking tea because you're afraid of carrying a hot cup from the kitchen to the living room. You can pretend everything's fine. You can adapt in secret. You can convince yourself it's not that bad. Have you done this? Hidden something from everyone, including yourself, because admitting it feels too much like giving up. I started making adjustments. Using plastic cups instead of glass or ceramic, drinking lukewarm beverages instead of hot ones, eating with my hands when I could, avoiding soup and anything that required a steady grip. I bought travel mugs with lids, even though I wasn't traveling anywhere. I just needed something that wouldn't spill when my hands shook. I needed containers that forgave my limitations. The kitchen became complicated. Cooking had always been something I enjoyed, but it started feeling dangerous. Lifting a pot of boiling water off the stove, pouring hot oil into a pan, carrying a casserole dish from the oven to the counter. All of these normal, everyday tasks became risks. Because what if my hands shook at the wrong moment? What if I dropped something hot? What if I burned myself badly and couldn't get help fast enough? When was the last time you felt safe doing something you'd done 1,000 times before? When was the last time cooking or making tea didn't feel like a test you might fail? I started avoiding certain foods. No more pasta, because draining boiling water felt too dangerous. No more fried anything, because hot oil splashing was a disaster waiting to happen. No more baking, because pulling a hot pan from the oven with shaking hands seemed like asking for trouble. My diet got simpler, colder, sadder, sandwiches, cereal, things that didn't require heat or careful handling. My daughter came over for lunch one day and I made us sandwiches. She asked why I never cooked anymore, why we always had cold food when she visited. I told her I just preferred simple meals now, didn't want the fuss. But she looked at me with this expression I couldn't read, and I wondered if she knew, if she could see what I was hiding. The shaking got worse at night. I don't know why. Maybe fatigue. Maybe the cumulative effect of a long day. But evenings were the hardest. I'd be sitting in my chair, trying to read, and my hands would shake so badly the book would wobble. I'd try to hold the remote control and my thumb would slip off the buttons. I'd try to take my evening pills and spill them across the counter, watching them scatter and roll, getting down on my hands and knees to find them all. I stopped taking baths. The thought of stepping into hot water, of sitting in it, of trying to get out with wet, shaking hands, and no one there to help if I slipped, it terrified me. I switched to showers, quick ones, lukewarm water, because I was afraid of burning myself if I couldn't control the faucet properly. Another small surrender. Another piece of my independence quietly disappearing. Do you know what it's like to be afraid of water, of heat, of the basic elements you need to stay clean and fed? 3 weeks ago, I was making tea. I know I said I'd stopped, but sometimes I'd still try. Sometimes I'd think maybe today would be better. Maybe the shaking would be less. Maybe I could have one normal cup of tea like a normal person. I filled the kettle and turned on the stove, and when it whistled, I reached for it. My hand was already shaking before I touched the handle. I grabbed it anyway, lifted it, started to pour, and my hand jerked. The boiling water sloshed over the side of my cup, onto the counter, onto my hand. I dropped the kettle. It hit the counter hard, more water spilling everywhere, steam rising, and I stood there clutching my burned hand, watching my skin turn red, feeling the pain spread, and thinking, this is it. This is what I was afraid of. This is how elderly living alone becomes deadly. Not in some dramatic way, but like this. A cup of tea, a moment of shaking. And suddenly you're hurt and alone, and you did this to yourself because you were too stubborn to ask for help. I ran my hand under cold water for a long time. The burn wasn't terrible, it blistered a little, but didn't scar. But it could have been so much worse. I could have dropped the kettle on my foot, could have splashed boiling water across my face, could have started a fire, could have ended up in the hospital, or worse, having that conversation I'd been dreading. The one about whether I could really keep living alone. The one about nursing homes and losing independence and giving up my home. I didn't tell anyone about the burn. I wrapped it in gauze and made up a story in case someone asked, though no one did, because when you live alone, there's no one to ask. No one to see your bandaged hand and demand to know what happened. No one to make you face what you're doing to yourself. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't pretend the shaking was no big deal. I couldn't keep hiding from the truth. My hands were getting worse. And living alone with hands that couldn't be trusted around heat or weight or anything that required precision, it wasn't safe. It wasn't sustainable. And sooner or later, probably sooner, something terrible was going to happen. I called my son. I told him about the shaking, about the burn, about all of it. And he didn't say, "I told you so," even though I'd been brushing off his concerns for months. He just said, "Dad, we need to get you some help." And I said yes, because I was tired of being afraid, tired of avoiding half my kitchen, tired of cold sandwiches and lukewarm showers and living in constant fear of my own hands. We started with simple things. An electric kettle with an automatic shut-off so I can't forget it. Lightweight containers so there's less to drop. A microwave for heating things safely. Pre-made meals I can warm up without using the stove. And we talked about getting someone to come in a few times a week. Not to take over. Just to help with the things that have become dangerous. The cooking. The hot beverages. The tasks that require steady hands I don't have anymore. It's been 2 weeks. I'm still adjusting. Still learning to accept that aging and independence mean something different now than they used to. That I can't do everything I once could. That asking for help isn't the same as giving up. That protecting myself, making my home safer, building support around the things I struggle with, that's how I actually stay independent. That's how I keep living here, instead of being forced out by an accident I could have prevented. If your hands shake when you're holding something hot, If you're avoiding cooking or making tea or taking hot showers because you're afraid, if you're hiding burns or near misses from the people who care about you, please listen to me. This is serious. This is your body telling you that you need help. That living alone after 70, after 75, after any age, without the right adaptations and support, it's dangerous. And pretending otherwise doesn't protect you. It puts you at greater risk. There's still time to make changes. There's still time to get safer equipment, to bring in help, to adapt your routines before something terrible happens. But there's not unlimited time, and waiting until you're seriously hurt, until you've started a fire or ended up in the hospital, that's when other people make all your decisions for you. That's when you really lose your independence. So please, be honest with yourself. Look at your hands. Look at your kitchen. Are you really safe? Or are you one shaky moment away from disaster? Because I was there. I was one kettle away from catastrophe. And I was lucky. I got the warning I needed without permanent damage. But not everyone is that lucky. If this story spoke to you, if you recognized yourself in any part of it, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might be struggling in silence. Leave a comment and tell me what you're dealing with, because you're not alone in this fear. Hit the like button if you found this honest and real. We need to talk about these things openly. We need to stop hiding our limitations until they hurt us. Sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing we can do. And that's something I'm still learning, one careful day at a time.